Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds, and I'm here with Keith, co-star of my upcoming film, If, only in theaters May 17th. Do you want to tell people the big news? All right, I'll do it. Sign up now and you'll get unlimited for $15 a month and 6 months of Paramount Plus Essential Plan on us. MintMobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 equivalent to $15 per month. Unlimited over 40 gigabytes per month. Face lower speeds. Videos at 480p. Active Mint customers by 531.24 get 6 months of Paramount Plus Essential Plan. Auto renews after 6 months. Offer ends May 31st, 2024. Separate Paramount Plus registration required. Terms and conditions apply if rated PG.
Today on CityCast Madison. One of the biggest issues in our state heading into the 2024 elections is abortion. The deeply divisive topic generates a lot of heat, passion, and indignation when debated. But as rhetoric and debate rages on, are any of us any closer to solutions? A national nonpartisan project called Citizen Solutions organized a 4-day intensive civic experiment with 14 Wisconsinites who differ widely on their stance on abortion, and had them seek policy solutions together. We sat down with two of the experiment participants from opposing ideologies, Ali Muldrow, Executive Director of the Women's Medical Fund for Wisconsin, and Bria Halama, a mental health counselor in Milwaukee, to learn about their experience and what steps they recommend Wisconsin take moving forward. It's Tuesday, May 14th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Ali, hello.
Hi, Bianca. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited for this conversation. Bria, hello. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I'm excited too.
So, if I've got this right, you two willingly engaged in one of the toughest conversations to have right now with 12 other mostly perfect strangers. And not just have the conversations, but come up with solutions together. Why take this on, Bria?
Yeah, for me, I was approached with an opportunity by a friend who couldn't do it. And she's like, hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this. And I tend to be a yes person. And so I just saw it as a really cool opportunity to connect with people and worked for my schedule. Yeah, I mean, I could go more into like my stance on things, but just I had had an experience at a pro-life march where there were pro-choice protesters and just had beautiful conversations with people. And so I was just really moved to have more conversations like this and just to connect with people who think differently than me. So
amazing. And Ali, what about you?
I think it was just such an incredible opportunity to have the space to engage in really thoughtful dialogue with people who are personally and deeply impacted by an issue in very different ways. And I think it was one of those moments in your life where you get to kind of explore what informs your values and what informs the values of other people. And I think that there's something really courageous about engaging in conversation intentionally with people who are thinking about something that matters a lot to one another and are thinking about it very differently than one another.
Absolutely. That's what stands out to me is the courageousness. You know, for some, few things suck the air out of the room more than bringing up abortion in mixed ideological company. I just told someone about this interview because I've been thinking about it a lot. And the first thing they did was they got visibly, physiologically activated and said, do you want to know what it is about abortion? Wide eyes. You know, to say opinions on abortion are strong would be putting it mildly. So I would like to know why each of you, if you could tell us briefly a bit about who you are. Ali, we've had you on the show before, but, you know, in this new space, who you are and why you personally, in your identity, feel a stake in this conversation. Ali, let's start with you.
Yeah, I so greatly appreciate the opportunity to kind of reintroduce myself within this context and this conversation. I'm a person who has had an abortion. I'm also the mother of 3 little girls. I currently am the executive director of Wisconsin's Abortion Fund. It's really important to me to have conversations about abortion because I believe in collective care around abortion. I believe that nobody deserves to be made to feel ashamed or stigmatized because of the kinds of healthcare that they need to navigate. I think abortion is one of the most personal moments people have. And I think that there is so many people who have positioned themselves to judge people who need access to abortion care rather than to support and understand. And so it was really important to me in having this conversation to have a great deal of reverence for my own experience and the experiences of other people who have had abortions. I also identify as a Black woman in America. I identify as the descendant of enslaved people. And I think reproductive rights and the way that reproductive rights informed the reality of slavery in the United States of America is something I want people to take into consideration in terms of what it means to be a Black woman in a state like Wisconsin, in a state where you are more likely to die giving birth, a state where you are more likely to lose your children if you are Black in infancy and in early childhood. And so I thought I could bring a perspective to this conversation that was intersectional and also informed deeply by compassion and respect for other people.
And how about you, Bria?
Ali, I appreciate you so much. You're so beautiful.
Truly.
Yeah, to name before I even go into my stance, it's just like I'm so sensitive to the complexity of this topic and our sexual identity, our bodily autonomy is something it's one of the deepest, most fundamental aspects of what makes us human. So I just want to name first off that I want to speak into this with like such sensitivity and like reverence to every person. And I know that sometimes when you start getting into your own perspective or opinions or whatever on things, you can kind of lose that. So I just like want to name that. Like I have such reverence and honor for every person that might be listening, for each of you. But yeah, so my story in brief is that I was raised Catholic and kind of in that pro-life stance and with that movement, and kind of had this perspective of, we have to protect life. We have to be so proactive. We have to make sure that like nobody chooses abortion. And then on the flip side, after an abortion is like chosen or happens, there can be such a shaming, a condemnation, like a judgment, like Ali had mentioned. And so personally, I had gone through kind of a shift when I got into like late high school and college, kind of like, I'm sick of being like this like rigid Catholicism. I want to be my own kind of Catholic. I want to be my own kind of person, and kind of went away from the faith and was living in a way that more so is what the culture says of just like sexual freedom, like do what makes you happy, do what you want to do. And so I was living in that kind of way. And then just started to realize as I grew, like, I'm actually really miserable. Like I have these Catholic values that I believe in, but yet I'm not living in that. And like, how do I reconcile this? And so I started to move back into my faith, and then had a really beautiful reconversion and just kind of like encounter with Jesus in 2019. And then since then have been growing just back into my faith and actually understanding, like Ali had said too, like, why do I believe what I believe? Like, instead of just believing it because my parents said so, like, what is my story? What is my experience? And what do I believe to be true based on what I know about humans and based on, and then like, coming into being a therapist, I started to learn more about like human anthropology and, our psychology and theology and philosophy and all of those things. And just coming to an understanding of humans that's based in my faith, but also based on just my experiences with being with humans and just trying to love them wherever they come from.
Sign up to The Economist for in-depth curated expert analysis of world events and topics ranging from business and culture to science and technology. You'll get the weekly digital edition, online-only articles, curated newsletters on politics, the markets, science, culture, and China, and full access to The Economist Podcast Plus. The Economist is independent journalism for independent thinking. Go to economist.com and get your first month free.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
What I understand from this experiment was, at its core, there is a motivation to help move the conversation away from the binary between pro-life and pro-choice. How well do you think that worked in what you witnessed as a group?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you cannot listen to people tell their stories of how their life has been personally impacted by abortion and disregard how deeply intimate and vulnerable people had to be in that space to talk about this issue. And so I think that how well it worked is a really complicated thing. I've said this a couple of times. I'm like, I think if people were really attached to us all coming out and going, we absolutely have the same perspective on abortion after this couple of days together, that you'd be really disappointed by the outcome, because we came out of this, I think, as people who had greater conviction and commitment to our own perspective and experiences. I think where there was a lot of success was our ability to look at root causes, to look at kind of the conditions of our community and say, we want to use our shared voices and the places, the things we do have in common. And we want to leverage those to make people's lives better, to make sure people have health care, to make sure that people have medically accurate education. I think we were able to set aside our differences, but we were also able to lean into our differences. And I think that was one of the most powerful parts of the conversation, is that people disagreed passionately and stuck around to listen to one another.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there was intentionality in trying to not necessarily just like speak like we're pro-life and we're pro-choice, because there's so much nuance in that. But I think something that I saw that was so beautiful was how we were able to relate as humans, because as humans, like, we have the same biology, we have the same stuff. We're more similar. We're way more similar than we are different. Like, in a lot of ways is something that I believe. And I think I got to see how we were able just to relate on a human level, that like, hey, we're all humans and we all have different experiences, and we're coming at this from maybe what seems like two binary, sides in the culture. But we were able to see that actually we want similar things. We want life and we want love. We are drawn by our desires for truth and justice and goodness and beauty and those kinds of things. And I saw that play out. And especially with the moderators of Starts With Us, I think they did such a beautiful job of connecting us over meals and getting to know one another and kind of shaking up where we were sitting so that we're having conversations with each other. And I think we really grew in a lot of love and respect for each other. And we're like, when we reconvened in April, most of us were hugging each other and like, hey, how are you doing? It's like, this is wild. Like, this is so good. So
I could just feel the loving, beautiful souls that both of you are. But some of it was frustrating, I imagine. That it wasn't just kumbaya, but real, heated moments, I would imagine. I want to talk about that, but I want to quickly share the policy proposals you all developed as a way of proving that common ground solutions are possible. So you came up with these 5. The first, require human development education that is comprehensive, medically accurate, and developmentally appropriate. Require pro-life pregnancy resource centers, abortion providers, and all other prenatal care providers to provide standardized, medical, accurate, all-option information to those accessing their services. Extend public health insurance, Medicaid, postpartum coverage from 60 days to 12 months. Provide a fully refundable state child tax credit. And enact paid family leave, including for foster and adoptive parents. Boom. Those are some policy proposals right there. And I understand it was unanimously approved by the group. I do want to ask, were there any of those in particular that were more challenging to settle on as a group to get everyone behind?
I mean, I'm so proud of the work that we did to have those conversations. I do think that we talked a little bit around what it means to have LGBTQ inclusive and affirming human growth and development. And there was some real tension around like what that means for young people and what we're affirming, and how we create environments that accept people's differences and also make space for folks to observe their faith in ways that are meaningful to them. So I feel like we had some real tension around that solution specifically.
Yeah, Bria, what would you say?
I don't know if this is answering the question directly. Yeah, I would echo what Ali said. Like, I'm so proud of the work that we did, and it was messy. And like, there were proposals that we had to drop because we just couldn't find common ground on the language or the specifics. But it's so beautiful to see that these were able to come out on such a controversial issue that, hey, we do want to support young people. We do want to support families. We want to support women. We want to support our communities. And I think I have a little different perspective. Like I was coming in not at all an expert or like an advocate in these kind of domains. Like a lot of the people there do such beautiful work in advocating for families and for women and for all people. So I'm less passionate and knowledgeable about legislation and proposals and things. And I'm way more passionate about like community building and like humans just being human together. And so I think proposals and legislative changes and social justice, those things are necessary and important, but like what's going to change the world is actually building relationships with people and like coming to understand each other across lines. And I think we did that in such a beautiful way. And so we had both, like we connected, we grew in love and respect for each other, and we also developed some tangible things that we can do, but like both have to come together for things like this to actually change and move. So.
And Bria, you mentioned earlier that there was a time in your life when you shifted towards what felt like the more popular culture, away from maybe some values that you've returned to. I imagine folks on the pro-life side of the spectrum maybe feel marginalized in Madison, at least. There maybe are not as many of those voices, or at least maybe not hearing from them. I'd be curious how you felt in that space. Does that resonate with you in terms of your experience in having these conversations across lines of difference?
Yeah, gosh, I really appreciate that question and like your comments there. Yeah, I mean, the reality of the room was that there was 5 people on the pro-life side and then 9 people on the pro-choice side. So I think we were coming in as like whoa, like, are we going to have our voices heard? Like, how do we do this? Like, but it is what it is. And I was like, okay, here's what we got. Like, there's no use complaining about it. Like, let's just enter in and see what happens. But I think that is a reality that like, there is a sense that like, it can feel like a minority in like the popular culture, but like, I think that was a space, like there was a beauty and like the humility that I grew in that, and like hearing the women of color speak of like constantly being in this minority position and constantly having to feel like they have to fight for things. And so just to, and so many, there's so much more to say there too, but like to be in this posture of like, oh, we're the smaller group here. Like, what does that mean? How does that feel for me? Like, how can I grow in humility there? Like in my privilege. So that was just a beautiful space to be in too. But yeah, I mean, that was a reality, but it was like, okay, what can I do with this reality, and how can I grow from it, and how can I connect with others through that? So it was a beautiful space.
Yeah, that was my next question. You led me right to it, which is race is often a part of these discussions, and rightfully so, considering, Ali, you'd already mentioned it, the maternal mortality rates for Black women. I myself have thought, if I have a child, maybe I'll go to Europe and have that kid. Just the fear of our infrastructure here in the United States. It's really, it can cause fear, and the history of racism in the medical rooms. Ali, can you share about your experience there and that discussion and this experiment?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about the demographic makeup of the people who are having this conversation, it's women of color made up a very small portion of the folks who were in the room. Men were very much outnumbered in that space and in this conversation. And I think, the breakdown of kind of gender implications and race implications is incredibly important when you're having a conversation about abortion. In Wisconsin, 1/3 of people who get abortions identify as Black. And in a context that has some of the worst maternal outcomes for Black women and infant mortality rate for Black babies and Black children, having any kind of policy that can promote medical negligence to Black women who are experiencing pregnancy is tremendously dangerous. And I think that that's not an outcome that I felt like any of the people who identified as kind of folks who are against abortion access, I don't think that that's the outcome that they want. I don't think they want to make pregnancy and birth more dangerous. But if you have policies that are not informed by medical accuracy, and you're not willing to take into consideration the stakes of pregnancy. I've had 3 babies, and there's a lot of complexity that we need to be aware of and compassionate to. And so I think for me as a Black woman, there were moments in the conversation where I really struggled with the idea that particularly kind of the white men in that space, thought that they should have more of a say in terms of my body or the bodies of my daughters than we should have for ourselves. And I struggled with that also because historically the implications of that are profound. And so you are, two white men who identify as against abortion access. I think you have to take into consideration the long history of white men who identify with Christianity making decisions about the bodies of Black women without taking into consideration their health and safety.
One of the things that stood out for me is in the proposals was the push for accurate information across the board about what is developmentally appropriate. I feel like there's tons of misinformation and lack of knowledge about that, as well as, some of the things that you're talking about, Ali, and just the stakes of pregnancy. There's no question about it. Like, these conversations are life and death. And it's not just about the child, it's also about the mother. And it's about the families. I have goosebumps. So, looking at this from a bird's eye view, if you could distill like one thing from this experience, in this experiment, to share with Wisconsinites, what would it be?
Yeah, I'm so grateful. Like, I was so stretched and again, like Ali said, like, I didn't shift in my belief system and like the objective realities that I believe are true. But I was so stretched to see the other perspectives, to hear other stories. And I think to grow more in that side of compassion and not judging and recognizing like, this is such a messy, complicated life that we live. And as humans, we're messy and we're complicated. And how can I both promote life and promote support for women who like, so they can have their children, and then also support women who choose abortions and who also need so much love and support after that, and like need these legislative changes. Like, how can I be a proponent on both sides of that? And so I felt this stretching of my heart and of myself in that. So I think I would just love for Wisconsinites to look at the proposals, to weigh in. And like, I think there's a way you can sign up to give comments, like give your comments, give your feedback. Like, I think starts with us. They want to know more of the nuances of what people think. And I would just love for people to like sit with kind of what we all had to sit with, which was so good for us, like sit in the discomfort of like the aches and the pains and the passion and all the things you have around this issue, whatever side you're on, and just to ask, what has informed this? Like, what do I believe? And can I come to a place where I can be stretched and I can say, I disagree with the other side, but I see where they're coming from. I see why they have that perspective, and just to be able to be stretched and to grow and seeing where the other side is coming from, because it's probably similar to your desires, like that you want life, you want love, you want people to be healthy and happy. You want people to have choices and free will. Like, those are all good things that I think both sides ultimately want in some respect.
And I should note, what you're talking about is Citizen Solutions public platform that is indeed a part of this, is that what you guys developed is being shared with the public and shared with people of Wisconsin, and asking them to weigh in and share their points of view on that. And Ali, what about you for an experience?
I think I would tell people in Wisconsin that there is space to be in community with one another and to learn from a space of community. And I think there's a great deal of integrity in caring about what somebody has to say when it's different than what you have to say, and being open to learning from somebody and being available to think about something from a perspective that is not your own. I think there's a tremendous amount of power in that. And I do think that there's a tendency in this political climate to give up on each other, to say, we don't agree, we don't see eye to eye, and therefore our connection is disposable. And I think that this process, and particularly kind of getting to know Bria, which was such an incredible opportunity for me as a person, really reminded me that people are not disposable. Relationships are not disposable. And there is space for love and disagreement. There is space for commitment and conviction and willingness to listen and understand one another. And so I hope that we in Wisconsin are interested in kind of seeing beyond our differences and finding a space where we can listen to one another and we can cultivate meaningful relationship intentionally, and where we can recover from moments that are really hard. Because all throughout this process, this group of people had to push each other really hard. And that was not an easy or painless process. And people confronted really challenging moments together and recovered from those moments in order to stay in community. And I think that's a muscle that we should all try to make a little stronger.
And you all built this community, and I want to ask, what's next? Do you hope to bring these policy solutions to our state lawmakers? I heard that Citizen Solutions already did this experiment in Tennessee on gun rights. And they, as a group, the Tennessee 11, I learned that they brought their proposals to their lawmakers and actually saw some of their proposals pass in a law.
My hope as one of the Wisconsin 14 is that we are really excited about the proposals that we came up with. I think that it would be hard not to move this across the finish line, not to at least try, in part because we made people relive some of the most tragic moments in their lives and tell some of their hardest stories. And I would like to think that because we did that, that means people will have access to the maternity leave that they need or the parental leave that they need. That means that we got together and did that, and people will have better and more accurate information in a variety of areas of their life. That our government will reimburse people with a tax credit for their kiddos. We make life a little bit more livable and we alleviate strain. And I think if we can make something that was challenging for us meaningful and alleviating and supportive of the greater community, I think it was a completely worthwhile thing to do.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you both so much. Thank you for joining us today. It was tremendous.
Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you so much for having us, Bianca. It was really nice to get to hang out with you both.
That's Ali Muldrow, Executive Director of the Women's Medical Fund for Wisconsin, and Bria Halama, a mental health counselor in Milwaukee. The Citizen Solutions Initiative is encouraging people across Wisconsin to weigh in on the 5 policy proposals co-created to address some of the root causes of abortion and support women, children, and families. They're seeking comments through the end of this month. May 31st is the last day. We'll drop that website in our show notes if you want to go check it out and participate. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with someone who disagrees with you on the issue of abortion? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care of yourself and each other.